All right, breaking news, everyone. President Obama tonight speaking with French President Hollande about the Greek debt crisis. The leaders agreeing on the importance of reaching an agreement on Greek reform as the country nears default. For more on the Greek debt crisis, I'm joined right now by David Riley, co-editor of the Wall Street Journal's Heard on the Street column. Good to have you here, David.
Thank you.
Everybody's working to try and get something together here. Merkel says she wants to salvage all of this. Hollande indicating that. President Obama indicating that. We heard from Kerry earlier today indicating that. But how do you do it when the Greeks don't want it?
Right, because that's what we heard, late this afternoon from the prime minister there, who really came out sort of aggressively saying, we want to go to the referendum and we want the no vote and we're going to campaign for it. And you saw that today in the markets because the markets were unsettled as the day opened, but wasn't anything, terrible. And then late in the day, especially when he spoke, that's when you saw the sell-off really gather pace. I think people realized, well, this isn't just an 11th hour thing here. This is really going to go down to the wire.
The problem is it's coming down to domestic politics. Let's not forget that Tsipras was elected because he promised that he wouldn't cut anybody's benefits or have any kind of austerity.
So he's using the referendum. And the question is this just a bargaining chip or is he going to go the whole way? And then that, who's going to be the rational actor here? Who's going to be the irrational actor?
Yeah, it's like this bad game of chicken. And the Greeks have indicated before that they're not necessarily so rational when it comes to all of this stuff. Let's talk about what it means to our markets. You mentioned the Dow, of course, off 350 points today. People really rattled by this. The fear, of course, is contagion.
Right. And so that's the thing. And you think back to 2011, 2012, the last time we had the Greek crisis, and the markets really took a big hit. The thing I think it's important to remember is that we're in a very different place today. Back then, there was real worries about, for example, Morgan Stanley and the exposures they had to some of the European countries and Greece. Well, all the U.S. banks, their exposures now to Greece are minimal, if not nothing. Sure, there's linkages between them and the European banks, but the U.S. banks have been preparing this for ages now.
Gosh, we've had 6 years, right? I mean, it's enough already. Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid. So the U.S. banks don't have exposure. I'd say the European banks, most of them don't have exposure.
Well, they have some, and that's why you saw today, like Deutsche Bank was down 6%. Because people are worried about that. But I think for the U.S. banks, another thing to keep in mind is that over those 3 years, the banks have been building capital. They've never been as capitalized as they are now.
Okay, so you say our banks are healthy. We can handle any problems out of Europe. But what about the Eurozone region itself? If that starts to sputter and come apart,
that's the big worry.
Doesn't that have a global effect?
There's two things. One is the chance for a Lehman-like moment, that unforeseen thing that suddenly blows you never thought about. So that right there could spark some sort of contagion people didn't expect. And the other thing is not Greece. It's what happens in Portugal. Do you a week from now see people in Portugal lining up at the ATM saying, well, we saw what just happened in Greece. And from Portugal, does it go to Spain? And from Spain, does it go to Italy? And that's the domino theory that people worry about.
Let me ask you about what it means for interest rates back here at home. We've seen the Fed indicate that they would like to get off zero at some point in the near future. They do. But, now you've got this happening. It's making the U.S. dollar all the stronger, which makes it, of course, harder for us to export.
Well, actually, what's interesting today is that the dollar didn't really strengthen as much as you would have thought.
Not as much as you would have thought, because I think some people are thinking, you know what, if Greece goes, that's actually probably good news for the euro, because then you don't have those problems.
Exactly, you take that problem too.
But overall, I mean, the concern is our currency has gotten stronger in the wake of all of these problems in Europe, and it's assumed that, probably it will continue strengthening here. What does the Fed do in light of that?
Well, I think the expectation was the Fed lifts rates off zero and come September. I think we're back to December now. And I think there's a big question. If this gets much worse, we're probably looking at 2016 before they lift rates.
I agree with you. I think there's no way that they can move. They might like to, but at this point, they had their opportunity, and now it's gone. Thank you so much, David Riley. Good to have you here from Heard on